All right, we're on, huh?
Yep. Aloha, everyone.
How's it going, guys?
All right. Welcome back. We're going to be doing a little bit of an update. We haven't done this in a little while. We've kind of been behind. But let's do a little Mauna Loa, Kilauea, talk about how anything that's changed, the developments, where they're at, that kind of stuff. And we'll also be kind of diving into some of the information that's been divulged from the After Dark in the Park during the Volcano Awareness Month, month of January. So we're going to kind of go into that a little bit too.
Yep,
But yeah,
great.
thank you for joining us, everybody. And, disclaimer, nothing imminent is coming. It's, not that exciting what's the changes that are going on in terms of lava and stuff like that. No, we're not there yet.
Yeah, if we're playing the role of town crier, we can say it's January 2020 and all is well.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
There's not, there is signs of life on the volcano, but nothing alarming. And we'll kind of detail a little bit of those changes. You're pretty free guys pretty quick, yeah?
Yep.
Starting with Mauna Loa.
Yep. What up, Ken? What up, Cody? How you guys? All right, let's dive into Mauna Loa real quick. All right, so here we're looking at the earthquakes on Mauna Loa. This is over the past year. This is locations of the earthquakes, and we can see, let's get up we don't have the pin isn't on this computer.
Oh, no worries. We'll have to use
this.
the finger and the mouse,
right,
yeah.
The mouse. So in this area here, this is a common area for earthquakes. Second common area for earthquakes. This is the Mauna Loa summit, where this batch of earthquakes, shallow earthquakes, that's the red ones. You can see the depth right here. So red, shallow, orange is a little deeper, yellow is a little deeper than that. Right. You can just see these common areas, and then the summit. So what do you think of this? Yeah,
this is for the whole last year. This is on the HVO Mauna Loa update page. I think if you click back on the last month, maybe people can see like how few earthquakes actually of those in the last month have actually made up the bulk of the year. So the year's been very active. It was much more active in 2019 and 2018. You can actually see that in GPS. We'll see that shortly. But just in the last month especially, it seems a little bit slower.
Right.
Since the last update we put out for you guys. So that's more or less, Mauna Loa. It seems like there's still activity. It's still kind of shallow. We're still kind of worried in general terms, but we're not worried about anything specifically apart from the fact that we know that it's only a matter of time.
Right. And as of right now, we're still talking about dozens of earthquakes a day, maybe 100 earthquakes a day, 200, that type of thing. Right. Pretty low ballpark. In the build-up to an eruption, we expect that to increase by magnitude, basically.
Yeah,
if we were building, if this was the signs of it building towards something, we'd be seeing much, much more.
Yeah. So let's go to last year and look at the earthquake counts, right?
Right.
Which they actually show earthquakes per week, right? Every bar on that little blue graph right there is one of the weeks, right? So you can kind of see that it goes back a year. The first 2 weeks of January are on the right side of the plot there, and we're missing the first 2 weeks of 2019, kind of off the left side of it. You can kind of see that there was definitely climbing trends, especially during 2019 that kind of slowed down right there, September, and then kind of picked back up from September, October, and slow down again. And it's kind of been quieter in the last 6 weeks of the year, really, with the exception of the last week of the year in December. And,
right.
Kind of the first 2 weeks of January have also been similarly slow, relatively speaking, at that level of, we're talking up 80, 60 earthquakes a week.
Right, but let's compare that type of thing for the past 5 years. Come down for the past 5, and we can see we're still at these elevated rates if we're talking about these long-term trends. Right. So why is it yellow? Why is it at a yellow advisory right now?
Absolutely.
Well, it's still above background levels. We still have shallow quakes, and you can see right here how these shallow quakes, weren't really happening. Like February 2015 during the elevated rates when we were at yellow there. We were looking at these 5 to 10 kilometer quakes.
Right, all orange on that
plot. All orange, one-offs, and then we start building in February 2018, and then especially in 2019, you can't tell here, but the frequency of these is much more.
Yeah, so all those red circles. Yeah, so the shallow earthquakes are still there, and you were just telling me that the most concerning thing is how many shallow earthquakes we're still seeing.
Right.
And that's elevated still beyond the background levels. It's just a matter of time, I still think, but it's not like anything imminent. That plot isn't skyrocketing off to the right. It's kind of still steadily climbing. If anything, it's slowing slightly. And, so we're still monitoring it every month, and something's going to happen at some point, but it's not happening yet.
Right. We're not at that point yet.
Yeah. So we can maybe go down to the GPS. for the past 5 years there. You can kind of see that, the right end of the graph is a little steeper than just to the left of there in 2018, right, where it was slightly, it was still climbing, but it wasn't climbing quite as fast. It was climbing faster recently, the last year than the year before that, but still not to the point where it's really alarming, not nearly as fast as what happened in 2015, as you see to the left end of that plot right there.
That little bump there.
So we're kind of, still same as before.
Yep.
Nothing really changed there. We've been talking about these changes all year, basically, of all last year.
Yeah, it's been a year of watching Mauna Loa and saying, well, it's doing something.
Yeah, building.
It's building, but we're slow. We're still kind of at that point. It's building. If we go back a year and look at what it was building then, and we look at till now, it'd be night and day type difference. If you were analyzing it, but it's just a slow build.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, so that's really the takeaway. Big picture, that last year was faster than the year before that, and this year will likely be faster, and possibly it might build to something greater, but we just don't know that. We can't see that, and there's no sign of that at this point.
Right.
Yeah, so kind of zooming out, looking at the earthquakes kind of island-wide, right? The Mauna Loa clusters up there. This is just the last month again now. The most obvious, biggest cluster of number of earthquakes is down around Pahala, and everyone talks about these still today. All the public events we've been attending. There's a lot of chatter about this as well. They're all pretty deep. By deep in this area, we're talking about 30 kilometers down.
30 to 40.
To 40 kilometers down. Like in this situation, deep is 30 to 40 kilometers down, right?
Right. Very deep here.
Yeah.
When we're talking deep, this is as deep as
like more than 20 miles kind of stuff, right? So that doesn't relate to the other terms of deep when we talk about, deep magma or anything else. Like it's not the same thing. So these are really, really deep, right? In fact, we could be more descriptive and call these what was it? The deep-seated basal earthquakes under Pahala, right?
Right.
So
they're very deep. These are movements that we're not exactly sure what they mean. Like there's if we're talking shallow earthquakes, it's like, okay, magma, something's happening. Where with these, less easy to draw that out.
Yeah, it's still thought that this is where the magma generation zone kind of connects to the volcanoes. It's not quite clear exactly how that works, but what we hear, what the USGS has been sharing at public events is that they believe that this is related to Mauna Loa as well.
Right.
So it may be related to Kilauea also, but Mauna Loa definitely. So that's basically showing that same pattern we're talking about, increased activity in Mauna Loa. These earthquakes have been elevated pretty much all, for the last few years. It's not like it haven't happened before that,
right?
But they're definitely happening at a higher pace, at a higher rate than before.
Right. There's just a lot of uncertainty in this whole area on what it all means, what it connects to. When you talk about like, what do you think is happening here? The confidence levels is low. For whoever you talk to, it's going to be low.
The best explanation I've heard is magma moving through some kind of fracture that's allowing the island to actually adjust also. Right. So it's kind of deep faults, this kind of a fault and magma moving together through the same kind of space, kind of resonates and allows it to kind of in that magic sweet spot area kind of mush and cause that vibration signal right there, right? But what it does not mean is magma is not coming up through the ground there. It doesn't mean that. Right. It just means something's happening so deep underground that we can detect it. But for anyone who lives in that area, there's nothing to worry about there from this earthquake pattern, right? It's kind of just the pulse, right? The pulse of the magma coming into Mauna Loa and or Kilauea. Right. Yeah, we kind of leave it at that. And moving to Kilauea, earthquakes are still happening. You can see the cluster around the summit here. There definitely have been more kind of flurries, we'll call them, right? From time to time around the summit. But overall, it's been pretty low still, really, compared to I guess compared to 2018, it's always going to be that way. So it is a little bit elevated beyond background levels from before that, but it's not at any alarming rate.
Right. It's pretty close to background. If it's above background, it's pretty. It's still in kind of the same ballpark.
It might be the new background, we'll call it, right?
Right.
It might be the new background. It's just not the same as before.
And we still see these quakes. There'll still be some decent shakers down here, especially since this whole area is still moving. This whole south flank is still moving. So the other day we had what was initially put as a 3.0, kind of get marked up to a what is it now, 3.3?
3.3.
3.3 at 6.5K, and this is normal earthquake depth and the magnitude. This is what we've been seeing since the 2018 eruption, all along the same area that we're seeing basically these earthquakes continue.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You kind of see that all the way up to more or less Pu'o'o, kind of Kalapana, and then the earthquakes are a lot slower, right? We're not talking about like earthquakes happening in Leilani anymore.
Right.
Right, everything's at that southern farthest end beyond Pu'o'o. That adjustment seems to be kind of more locked in, right? And that's kind of the extent of where we hear there's deformation and magma coming in still, and the star signals an area of all the way up to maybe 130 at the most. But you kind of see, interestingly, on this plot between Pu'o'o and 130 is seismically quiet, right? It's kind of up from Pu'o'o. The south flank above there is what's actually adjusting the most from what we see in these plots.
This upper East Rift area. Basically.
Upper East Rift, exactly. Yeah, the elbow of it, in fact, right there.
Right. And the south flank, when we look at GPS, which we're going to get into right now, you'll see that we'll start with the summit, but basically the south flank's still going.
South flank is still going. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
since the 2018 eruption and that magnitude 6.9, not much has changed in that. The south flank's moving.
Yeah. Some areas have actually even started going a little bit faster, right? But it basically is still moving. And we don't have to just look at the plots to kind of keep telling you guys that it's been going, and that's the same story.
Right.
What's different and what's new are the distance measurements. The guys see right there. The first one, the top one is the summit caldera. Kilauea summit caldera, distance going across, and from Wikahuna in the north to Caldera Rim in the south, Crater Rim in the south. And at the right edge of this graph, you can kind of see that our slope has definitely decreased quite a bit. And this is something we talked about before in previous updates, that we weren't quite sure if that was going to hold, if it was a noise, if it was a plotting, how to calibrate. Now we can actually see the pattern has held for several weeks. Yeah, and it seems like if it's hard to interpret just based on one set of data alone, but right
that
here,
is a trend change right there. That's not one of these bumps where, maybe never mind, we're back on the trend.
Right,
we're
exactly.
At a trend change.
It's a longer term thing. It's a bigger pattern than that. Mm-hmm. And if that rise of the line throughout all of 2019 is magma coming into the system and swelling it and filling and pushing, then maybe it's slowed down slightly in the last couple of weeks. Not to say it won't pick back up, it won't re-equilibrate, but it's an interesting thing to notice, where it actually appears to have stabilized, and it's a longer term change where it probably is the magma coming in at a slightly lower rate, or maybe it's coming to some equilibrium. It's hard to know, and maybe it's found some barrier and it's going to be able to start building pressure. I mean, it's hard to know exactly what that means. Those are all kind of possibilities.
Right. For those unfamiliar, exactly what this graph is showing, it's showing basically the distance between two stations stationed on opposite ends of the caldera at Kilauea. So it's just showing the distance between them, and when it's going up, it's spreading apart. When it's going down, it's collapsing together.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pretty straightforward, and we can see this trend change. That's exactly what he's mentioning right here.
Right. Yeah, and that's I think the most significant thing, really, because that cross caldera is where we know all the action's happening. It's where we expect magma to come back. So where the INSAR shows a big bulge of deformation, right? The other spot being upper East Rift Zone, the lower East Rift Zone from Pu'o to 130, showing the INSAR as well, but. In both places, we'll get to that. There's not a whole lot of gas being shown, so it doesn't seem like any of that magma is any more shallow, right?
Right. We don't have the INSAR to show you for that.
We don't know.
I apologize, but we've seen it though, and there is a very broad area of swelling that's persisted basically since the end of the 2018 eruption. This area of inflation, not the exact dimensions of it. But in that general area, inflation has persisted, hasn't really.
We'll have to look at it. I think at the summit, the changes might start. They're saying February 2019. Maybe it was more visible caldera wide by April 2019, based on what I've seen of some of the plots. So we'll have to basically
dive into that one a little more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
But over at Pu'o, the distance measurement, similar kind of thing, imagining the measurement of a ruler across the East Rift Zone at Pu'o, and this is an area that we have seen some changes in distance before based on localized effects, collapse of the cone, instruments falling in, that kind of thing. We also have on this plot on a screen right here, what's suspected in October to be that little slight rise, possibly a movement of magma somewhere in the area. It didn't cause any escape of gas or anything like that, so also wasn't shallow. They keep talking about, and the USGS updates, even this month, the continued slowed refilling of the deep lower East Rift Zone, right? That's the area we're talking about right in here. So some magma probably moved in there to actually shift the GPS station around to cause that October rise. re-equilibrated. And what's happening here at the tail end of this graph is kind of minor in comparison to that, in comparison to the settling of the ground we've seen at previous parts of the station before, right? So,
all right, and I'll just throw the dissenting voice in this one on the Pu'u'o station. We've already lost instrumentation. USGS has lost instrumentation to the collapsing structure of this cone. We know, again, just like the other one, the previous graph that we looked at, the GPS, is showing a distance between two stations across the rift and across Pu'u'o cone here. This first station on the north side, the other, the Jacuzzi station on the south. It's an area with an asterisk added for instability due to local settling, at least around the cone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we've seen these types of things before, and then they just kind of like this October thing. It happens, it's local, it doesn't show up on any other stations, and then kind of just we move on.
Yeah, no disagreement there. I said
right.
similar thing.
Yeah, okay. And then this last one again. We each point here we're looking at is a day. Each one of those points is a day, and we've been having how far are we into it? Like a week now of rain.
That's right. Yeah, what we haven't mentioned is that we're doing this broadcast. Now, partly because it's been hard to schedule things earlier in the year because it's been pouring rain for about a week.
Right. So there's always the idea of during high periods of high rain.
There could be more adjustments, yeah.
Possible noise.
Yeah.
So Pu'u'o is kind of a wild card still to me. It's still a real wild card on what exactly it's doing. This overall trend that we see of this inflation seems to go along with the INSAR pretty well.
Right. I still don't like to call it inflation because it's like a distance increase, right?
Right, it is a distance increase
through the joint addition of inflation and south flank motion and the settling.
And going across the rift itself, too.
Going across the rift, which we know is area susceptible to those.
Right.
They're all those different things.
Yeah, and things on the north side of the rift like to move north, things on the south side of the rift like to move south.
Right,
It's a very interesting area, this station.
Yeah, it's a place where the ground moves, yes, from magma, but yes, for other reasons as well. So that's kind of why we're not really sure, what the implications are, but kind of the bottom line is even if magma is refilling that area deeper down, there's no signs of it coming anywhere shallow. There's no signs of it being pressurized because the south flank keeps moving and giving it more space all the time.
Right, and one of the main things that we will get into a little bit more is the lack of gas.
Yeah.
The lack of gas at both the summit and Pu'u'o to signify anything major, shallow magma happening.
Yeah, so we look GPS. We'll look very briefly at the tilt at Kilauea summit as well, which is also kind of a little bit affected by the weather. But where was the plot you had on the other tab over there? Or do we not have it?
No.
Yeah.
What are we looking for?
The 1 month tilt plot of the summit.
1 month tilt plot.
There it is, right there. Yeah. So and this one, the blue line is the summit, Huikahuna, and it's showing deflation inflation cycle is almost nonstop, back to back to back to back to back.
Up and down, up and down, up and down.
Which has been doing now for, this might be the third month, possibly.
Very frequent DI cycles.
Right, yeah.
Very frequent. As soon as it comes out of one, it's back in one almost.
Right. I'm not sure exactly, but maybe 6 months ago-ish, right? We might have had like 1 or 2 a month, right?
Yeah, type of thing. And now it's, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I think maybe it said 14 in the last month in the last update, something like that. There was a huge amount of them, right?
Amount.
Yeah. Right. So that's most of what's going on. The scale of these things, if you guys look on the left side of the plot there, we're talking like more or less -3, -2, up to +3, +2, right? So 5-ish microradians, right? So it's not an insignificant movement on the ground. And, it's not exactly clear what that is, but, in the past it's been tied to pressure cycles within the shallower upper chamber of the volcano, right? That was the one that was partially emptied for the eruption in 2018.
Right, and it just looks like breathing at this point, with how how steady this is. But, all right, so we had some very cool things produced in the last month since we've done our last update. First one, since we're talking about the summit right now, let's look at a 3D model of the summit that was put out by USGS recently with the lake in it. Oh.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're not going to play a sound.
Let's try this again.
All right. So this is files on the USGS image and multimedia page, right? And this is combining area imagery they took on December 18th of last year, 2019, right, with their digital elevation models that they've also produced, and really spinning you guys around so you can kind of see the 3D structure or the size of this crater, right? That's basically 2 miles across, like left to right-ish on the screen as it is right now. You know, that bigger crater with that inner pit of Halemaumau and the pond there, kind of teardrop shaped at the bottom of it. Well, we seem to be having a little bit of...
I'm blaming their servers. All right, so that's, Halemaumau 3D model.
Yeah, see, I guess.
Fly through.
Check that out. It's also been featured in some After Dark in the Park programs,
Right.
recently, so we might see that one again. And also, the next thing is...
Right, this is a 3D model that just got released. Oh, God, 1 second. It was put on Hawaii Tracker. You want to talk about this one for a second, please?
Yeah, and so what that is we're looking down on an image of Ahu'aila'au, also known as Fissure 8. Has not yet officially been named, but it appears that that's the name that's in the front running. And this is basically a 3D model that's been constructed from a series of
Michael Stewart
aerial photographs.
Michael Stewart constructed this with a drone using 400 photographs of the area, and then compiled it into this 3D representation of Fissure 8 in Leilani Estates.
And what Dana's doing is Dana's actually dragging the mouse around to rotate this as he wishes, right? Like it kind of responds in real time, and you kind of zoom in and like put himself in right there in the mouth of Ahu'aila'au. Right, there's a little collapsed puka, the pit that's still in there. You guys can see the textures of the rocks on the walls, how there's kind of the smooth coating of lava where the fountains were splashing down against the edge of the cone, right? You can kind of see where the cone is slumped in and collapsed a little bit on the margins, as it was settling in after everything was over and magma withdrew from the area.
Right.
You can kind of see the mouth of the channel if you kind of spin us around and show us. Well, first of all, there's the little bay off to the side of Fissure 8, right? We haven't talked about that thing in quite a little while, right? For a while, people were calling that Mini 8. Then they were calling the line of fumaroles behind Fissure 8 Mini 8. That's actually on that plot right there in the bottom right.
Yeah, these bottom right things.
Yeah.
And
so that's actually got a Hawaiian name we'll unveil at some point as well after we kind of get past the initial Ahu'aila'au.
Right, but these bays or these overflow areas seem to be they occur. They're on other cones as well. This isn't a unique occurrence right here.
Right. Yeah. Well, what's interesting when you can zoom in on these images, you can kind of see where the channel walls are starting to collapse. There's rubble on the ground a little bit. Like red rocks. There's places where you can see there's overhangs, right, where the lava that was moving through the lava channel was carving out and like scooping underneath the edges of the banks and kind of making overhangs that you can kind of pick out as shadows or darker areas, right?
Right, you can see one kind of here. This was, I think, that pass-through area for that that little lava tube.
Yeah, exactly. That's a lava tube pops out just behind that little ridge where you can kind of see over here. And that was where we kind of saw the lava would move more sluggishly through there if the lava level was lower. And if lava level was higher, that would kind of pick up speed as well.
Yep, right through there. So this is a very cool little thing that was just put out yesterday. So thank you, Michael. Very cool.
Check out Michael Stewart and Hawaii Tracker, and you guys can interact with this on your own. It's very cool. Yeah. So 2 3D models we got there. A Summit and Rift Zone. Here we are, a year and a half out, and what do we got next?
What do we got next? Well, we first right here, Fissure 8. One thing we do know is that emission levels at Fissure 8, it's like below detectable limits. It's like really low. Even like after the eruption, it was below detectable limits, but now it's at the point where even with talking with other residents around the area, it's like it's lower than it was post eruption. Like we don't like here. Even when the winds changed, I barely noticed it. Where before, like even months afterwards, you would get gassed out by the hydrogen sulfide. And you can just, it wasn't, it never gave me headaches or anything, but it definitely smelled. Now I have to go try.
And it's notable, right? There was a whole bunch of rain. Right. We have not had all these reports of stink and all these reports of steam and fuel and all that, right? So actually, we've kind of maybe moved past a point where the water is moving into hot rocks and interacting and, most of the stuff's still coming out or people are...
Right, getting used to it a little bit.
It's more in equilibrium, right, between people and nature itself, right?
Right. When the winds change, though, still people smell it. Like the winds get people, but that's, here. So let's dive into some SO2. Let's show this. SO2 levels pre-2018 eruption into the eruption, post-eruption.
Yeah, so this is a USGS slide that was presented at After Dark in the Park yesterday by Patricia Nadeau. along with Matt Patrick after Dark Talk, detailing changes at the summit in 2019. And this is just a plot of 2 years, 2018 and 2019. The kind of the darker plot in the middle, the stripe in the middle, that's during the 2018 eruption. So before the 2018 eruption, that's the lava lake era with all very, very variable measurements of gas. Often depending on overturns of the lava lake and that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That might have varied on a larger, shorter time scale than that, in fact. But what's really striking is after the eruption, how low it's been and how consistently low it's been across the board, right? You can kind of see close to zero.
Right. Very, very low.
Even below that dashed reddish orange line, that's the pre-2008 average.
Right, and even if you run this line back into when gas measurements started in the late 70s, we're below that.
Yeah.
Like
so,
every point
yeah.
we're below. It's insane how consistently below it is too.
Right. Yeah, they actually show another slide. That actually is the entire record of SO2 on a volcano that goes back to 1979, right there, right, and kind of see how it was low until 83, the polar eruption begins, and all the way up until summit eruption begins, it's at a fairly lower level of on the left is actually integrating over the whole year, 1 megaton a year, and then jumping to 3 megatons a year, summit eruption era in 2018. Now the number that they're working with is 10.3 megatons during a 3-4 month event. Right?
Yeah, considerable drop off.
Right, and then in 2019, it's been 13,000 tons the entire year, which is very, very little. This is about 40 tons a day, right? And what she's done on here is she's put a red line at the bottom of this plot showing the most polluting SO2 power plant in the U.S.
Right.
That has that information right in the center of the screen. This picture of the power plant, 143,000 tons a year. That's kind of EPA limits ballpark.
Right.
Kind of.
Let's talk about this thing for a minute.
So just to finish the thought, right? Like natural emissions of the volcano are way exceeding anything that people are allowed to put out.
Okay, let's talk about this plant for a minute because this plant is absolutely insane. Yeah. This plant produces 1 gigawatt of energy. That's like energy to power every island, basically. Like this thing is massive compared to what we have here. It's a big thing. So what about it? Well, it did have a huge amount of SO2 emissions.
Right. But
we looked it up, and we started researching this thing. And we found out in 2019 they put in some scrubbers for SO2.
Right, because they were such a bad polluter, they actually had to clean up their act, and they had to find ways to not put out so much SO2 into the air.
Right. So they put on some scrubbers on it that then reduced the amount of emissions by SO2 by 98%.
Yeah, 98%.
98% cut it to nothing, basically.
Well,
right.
Not
nothing, but a huge cut off right away.
Big cut. Yeah.
So
one of the ways they do that is this process called wet scrubbing, right? And wet scrubbing here, kind of to put it up and remind ourselves what is actually going on here. We're talking about the polluted gas. It's moving too much. I can't read it.
Sorry. We're trying to get it on the screen for people.
The polluted gas stream is brought into contact with scrubbing liquid, such as by forcing it through a pool of liquid. Just remove the pollutants, right? So that's one of the ways. And so we're not saying that we're going to have that high of an efficiency of scrubbing SO2 from the volcano with the actual pond, but this is something that USGS has been talking about as well. This natural scrubbing method, basically the fact that water is dissolving SO2, preventing it from getting to the surface where it can be measured. And so if they're measuring 40 tons a day, and it's getting scrubbed, some
percentage, 50%,
not super efficient, 50%, yeah. Then we're looking at kind of background levels from before 1983, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what they're working with. Is they'd say, well, if it jumped from 40 to, I don't know, let's call it 600 or something like that, you can say, okay, well, really, it's not 600, it's going to be more like 1,000 or more. And now we can see that the rates have really gone up. Even if we've not seen a full amount of it, they seem to expect to see the relative change. Right. So we can probably move on from the scrubber there, right, and kind of talk about the pond itself and how the water has been visible on the surface of the volcano. And this is a plot that Matt Patrick put out. So another USGS plot from After Dark presented yesterday, right? And the bottom line is that the growth has been pretty steady, regardless of big rain events, regardless of anything else.
Right.
They kind of go back, and it's been fairly steady, and they're basically coming out at 5 inches a day. That thing is rising.
Consistently too. You can just see how it's just been rising.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, and to the point where now it's about 74, 75 feet deep or so, right?
Right.
That's its vertical depth. It's going to kind of, expected to kind of get quite a bit deeper. I believe they said it could get another 50 meters deeper, somewhere in the range of that, yeah.
Well,
which we'll get to.
Something like this, maybe.
Exactly,
it could
yeah.
potentially get looking like.
Right, exactly. And our caption says the elevation is about 50 meters, 164 feet higher than the current pond level right there.
And you can see this is well below the rim of the crater.
The innermost pit.
Right. And then the caldera rim around it, much higher. So basically, this it's going to be a big lake.
But still in there, yeah.
Nothing compared to the caldera and how big that area actually is.
Yeah, the level that I look at is the level of these fumaroles, right? The yellow fumaroles that kind of go along the edge over here, right? And so kind of compared to that, it might go maybe halfway to that, but it's not going to go anywhere near where we see that yellow staining on the walls of the crater.
Right, so ain't nobody getting into it because that's going to be steep and you'll fall to your death on that one.
Right, yeah, so...
Let's look how big this thing is.
Yeah, Matt Patrick also showed this slide, right? So just giving USGS their credit. They actually didn't put their logo on all these slides, but that's kind of how they came out in the presentation. And this is all USGS information. Dimensions as of yesterday, January 14th, right? So 620 feet by 280 feet as they actually side to side, back and forth, right? And, this image is kind of interesting.
So we're at 2 football fields long and a football field across. Basically, minus a 10-yarder, 10 yards.
Right. So yeah,
but yeah, it's big. It's big. 2 football fields by a football field. Idea.
Right.
Roughly, But that's big. That's a big thing. And for when we started this back, what was it, July? This pond, seeing it June, July. First, it was a puddle. We were talking about the pond puddle, the little Holly Mau puddle.
Right.
And then we got into the pond, and now we're at full lake at this point. You're not seeing the bottom of this thing 74 feet down.
Right, 74 feet. Yeah, we could start saying maybe it's time to start calling it the actual lake. Yeah, instead of the pond. Yeah. So interesting point there. So what do we got next? USGS presentation. Kept talking about the lake and self-work scribbing. They talked about all that in great detail. We're gonna actually be able to post a link for you guys at some point, so kind of tease you guys on the actual full talk. That's way better job than I'm doing right now.
Right.
Patricia and Matt could
this is
actually
cliff notes. This is cliff notes.
Yeah. Maybe just the quick highlights as it pertains to an update of the volcano right now. It's just kind of information came out that wasn't quite
right.
As visible before that, right? We'll put it that way, yeah. So, basically they're showing the evolution of the lake, not only in size, but also in color. How originally it was more this kind of greenish color, and recently it's really gotten that kind of iron, orange, almost reddish color, right? And so they're going to go in and sample it again and see what's going on with that.
They're also noticing the differences along the certain parts of the pond, the coloration. So as you can see here, let me zoom in on it a little bit. Let's zoom in on it more. We're zooming. Enhance. Oh, God, what did we do?
Yeah, so you can kind of see the top part of the pond has got a slightly different color than the middle part of it, right?
Right. And you can see just along these edges this slight discolorations that we see.
Yeah.
And we've seen them even before the pond changed colors. There's still different colors along those areas. Not maybe so much in these low-res images in the compilation, but the high-res stuff, you can see it here for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. So that's they've proposed that those are areas where there's fresh water influx into the pond. So that's something that they've talked about wanting to sample. So really, to kind of hear all the details, you'll have to wait till the talk is put out and go and watch the talk itself. Yeah.
This is an official USGS carrier pigeon. What a majestic bird.
Yeah, and so After Dark stuff is just one aspect of the Volcano Awareness Month that's just ongoing. That includes several other hikes, right? And so in fact, there are available hikes coming up, right? So the 17th is Friday morning.
I'm gonna try and make that one.
Yeah, hike with Don Swanson.
8 a.m. is no promises for me.
So yeah, Don Swanson's doing I believe maybe 2 or 3 more hikes, maybe one a week at the summit. So that's coming up on Friday. There's another hike on Saturday at Mauna Loa with Dr. Carolyn Porchetta.
Awesome.
And I believe she has some extra research she did in optical eruption. So it'll be really exciting to hear what she's got to say about that. Before that, coming up tomorrow at Hilo, there's a talk about the chemistry of the eruption. That kind of mirrors a paper that came out from the geology department. Doing analysis on lavas throughout the eruption. Won't.
Right, and this one, if you want to go to it, UCB. That's like when you drive into UH, pull in through past the guard station. That's that building directly in front of you. I know that UH is kind of weird in how they do the numbers. That one, it's the big auditorium. You can't miss it right at the beginning. If you start walking a bunch, you're going too far.
Right. Kind of right behind the guard station to the left slightly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right there. Yeah.
Malka side of the university. But yeah, definitely worth attending.
Yeah, and then another After Dark coming up with Dr. Porchetta once again next week, I believe, talking about the Lower East Rift in 2019. So, and that's just next week. There's a whole other week after that, including some activities in Kona, some talks in Kona side. Speaking.
And there Ocean View one as well.
One in Ocean, yeah.
Mauna Loa, which would be important. Anybody there, it'd be worth. That'd be worth.
Right, so, we'll include those in future updates and kind of make sure that you guys can have access to that USGS information because they are doing a great job putting out all this information, especially during Awareness Month this month.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, I think we've gone through it. We're trying to leave this one kind of brief and quick and get through everything, a quick update for you guys. And I think we're there.
Yeah, one thing I would add is, check out the video of the sand at Pohoiki.
Oh, right.
Because, we'll be putting out some more content on that also, but, and then just want to, point out the excellent work you did and compiling all that aerial imagery and compiling that animation of how that evolution of sand actually went down, right? So I don't know if you feel like...
Yeah, I'm going to try and pull
that up here while I talk about it, but
The time-lapse I haven't shown anybody yet. Let's put that on.
All right, so here we go.
And now we're going through it.
Yeah, the premiere here of your...
Right, this one has been, a very similar one has been shown. So if you're like, I've seen this one before, there's some tweaks. It made a little tweak, refining, but...
You can kind of see the dates a little bit here at the bottom edge of the screen. As you can kind of see the progression of the sand,
and now we're today, basically.
Over the year and a half since eruption ended. August 2018 all the way till, the first month of 2020.
And as the crow flies, we're talking about basically a half mile in here with the sand. That's just continuously evolved and inundated the area, built up. Just mounds and mounds of sand and rock and, ruining surf spots, all of that in there.
Yeah. So, maybe play it one more time and then, we'll
get through it.
Sign off from there. And, thank you guys for joining us and, keeping track of what's happening with our volcanoes, with our new black sand beach, all the goings on. And, we will stick with you guys and, let's see if there's any questions. We could take some questions here. Let's see what we got going on. Bacteria. Could it be bacteria up in a pond? We don't believe so. At least it hasn't been reported as such. It'd be interesting to see if USGS does take more samples, if they can determine if there's any biological...
right, I figure there will be some of some kind.
Yeah. And especially compared to what they sampled last time, which I'm not sure if that, how much that was processed, right? But that's interesting. Yeah, we're interested in that as well. Yeah, could there be life up in that lake, right? Especially if it's not that extreme a place because it's not that acidic, for example, right?
Right. People are not concerned with H2. People are concerned with H2S, not SO2. If they're able to tell the difference, I applaud them.
Yeah. H2S is the stinky stuff,
right?
For sure. Yeah, it definitely bothers you, but the reason we talk about SO2 rather than H2S is because that's what's going to give us the early alert signal that magma is coming towards the surface, right? So that's, volcanically what we care about. H2S is a nuisance gas, basically. So it's there, depending on the wind and the weather, we notice it more. It affects people more, absolutely, But as far as monitoring the volcano, SO2 is what we really care about.
I got this one. What do you think will eventually happen with the lake? It will continue to increase in size until the point in which it does not exist anymore. It will be removed. At some point in time, that lake will no longer... It will be an X-lake.
Yeah. At some point, something will rip through. It'll kind of...
Right. It'll keep rising slowly, 5 inches, whatever a day.
Yeah.
Then it will not rise and it will drop quickly.
Yeah.
What that looks like, not sure, but
Yeah.
there will not be a lake at the end of that.
Yeah. Any eruption that happens up in that area is going to bowl down in that lowest spot and, boil that thing away as well. So it's just a matter of time before that happens, So I kind of see this era of the lake as like, let's enjoy it while it's here. Let's enjoy every aspect of the filling and growth of it. And then because at some point we'll talk back about, do you remember when it was actually a big pond of water in here?
Yeah.
Like I used to talk about 10 years ago. I
Right.
wanted to talk about, back in the day, they used to talk about big ponds of water in here. And, it's right now it's a thing of myth and legend. And we actually get to live through and see a little slice of that. So that's the epic part. But absolutely it's not going to
People
last.
will ask you, what did you do with it? Well, we flew a drone down there with a plastic bag attached to it and pulled some of it out. All right, guys. I think that gets it. Brian's thinking about 4 acres. I don't have the math for that.
Could be, yeah. We actually, like early on, we did an estimate of how wide and deep it will get. We at some point we'll pull that back up and bring it up for you guys, and we compared it to Green Lake as well, right?
It was like 4 Green Lakes or something like that, or more.
So we can bring that up, and we can kind of
big.
compare. What's kind of our back of the envelope calculation. But I think we're probably, if anything, that's taking a little longer to fill than I maybe thought.
Right.
Maybe a little slower than I thought.
Right. But it's still, at that rate. So, give it a year or two, and we'll hit some equilibrium, basically.
Right.
Theoretically.
Right.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you
thanks
for joining us. And until next time.
Yeah, stay classy.
Puna. All right.